Hey guys, I'm Joe.
I'm Mike.
And here we are after our first trip on the VR1s, 2021 Polaris 850. Mike decided it'd be good to let everyone know on the internet what it's like to drive these things and ride these things after our first 1,000 miles. Actually, I ended up with just over 1,000 miles, and Mike ended up with about
1200.
1,200. I switched sleds right towards the end. I ended up having a 2020 machine from last year that was an 850 Patriot. It's a bit of a different discussion for our next session, but ultimately we had to get a map fixed multiple times, and we needed to test to make sure that that map was ultimately working. This video here, and guys, we apologize on our first video, and we thought it'd be more important to get information out to you than worried about setting up our studio. Here we are on the new machines, and I guess I'll ask you, Mike, what stands out to you first on this machine is different from what we've been riding in the past years?
Before I answer that question, I'd like to say we're not sponsored by anyone at all. This is just a straight fact information video. If you're looking to pick up a VR1, or if you have any questions about it, maybe this helps you out down the line. But I'd like to say, just sitting on this machine, just generally the profile, the thing that sticks out to me the most is the slender body in between the knees, really, and obviously the display. Everybody talks about it. It's extremely game changing from the old PID or PIDD display that Polaris ran in the past that was already advanced ahead of the game. Now it's even better, if you can believe it. So yeah, we're going to take a look at everything that we noticed and picked up along the way of our first 1,000 miles. We just finished up some maintenance here in the garage, and hope you like it.
Yeah, to give a little bit of background, I guess, to start with, or to rewind for just a moment, the two different sleds that you've been on in the past was an 800 Switchback
Yes.
Polaris, and then the last sled that you had was an 800 Rush. So they were both Axys chassis. My background is I've had a Blizzard MXZ 850, which I really did like the motor on that. The chassis left some things to be desired. Obviously, Mike already mentioned the fact that the Axys had the PIDD, which is an excellent gauge. We thought it was pretty much as good as it gets until we got to the 7S gauge that's on this Matrix, and we'll talk about that more. I've had Switchback 800s along the way, 850 Switchback XCR. I have an Indy 129 from last year from 2020. That's also the 850 package. And this year we both went with, although they're different colors, we went with the mid-screen 129 Patriot 850 VR1 Matrix chassis. And we also did this without the ice gripper. That's going to be on a different episode where we cover different tracks. But ultimately, this track we went with the Cobra track and mildly picked. With that, I'll go ahead and just quickly mention some of the things that I like right out the gate on the Matrix, and some things that I'm still trying to get used to. To begin with, the videos show time and time again how much knee room that there is, and there is a significant amount of knee room. It changes a bit of the riding experience. Even though the chassis and the underneath components of this machine are still the same as last year for the great majority, the great part, with having that extra knee room, you do feel truly that you can get around the sled better. You feel less cramped. And at the end of the day, I would say all in all, I did feel a little bit less sore because I was able to move my knees around and not bang them off the cows again and again. First thing you also notice getting on is that you have this beautiful 7S display. We're going to do some close-ups and show some capabilities of that. And the switch gear on the left-hand side is also different. For me, being used to an Axys chassis for many years, it took a little bit getting used to, where the Axys chassis, I can grab any of the switch gear and move it without even thinking or looking at it. It is different switch gear. In the end, I'm sure I'll get used to it, and I'm sure that it is better. There is some great functionality to it, but it did take me a bit to get used to of toggling over to this with my hand. You may have seen many reviews or some earlier videos about the heated grips, and it was kind of funny for me to hear that people would say, "Oh, how do you feel about the heated grips? I didn't even know that they were on." Well, you do know that they're on for sure. It is great to set that heat setting per your liking. Put it at that mode, set it in there. You're not constantly going between high and low and throttling back and forth. You end up putting it on the heat mode. You want the temperature that you want, and the bars maintain it from there. And that was a real, true, great pleasure. The chassis is excellent. Of course, the Axys chassis is already a really good chassis. We just got these things pretty close to dialed in. We're pretty excited to knock down some laps. Also, want to take a minute towards the end of this video and talk about the motor, what we think some of the better benefits are to this motor. But one thing I will say is it's a really bizarre way to start off or get into a video, is that there is amazing technology on this sled. You have a very fast, capable motor. It is very fast indeed, and it can keep that clip for a very, very long time. It can keep that clip actually for a long time while sipping on fuel. We both noticed and noted that it seemed that with the new map that has come out on this motor, because the motor was out last year, it outperformed the other two 850s that I have within the fleet. And between us, we were able to have really, really good fuel economy and great oil economy. But the one interesting thing I want to say is that as fast as this sled is, as capable as it is, there are two really good features on this that not only make it more capable and quicker through the woods and quicker in the long run, but they actually make this sled safer than any other sled that I've been on. One, of course, is the 7S display. And what's great about it is, and we'll get into some of the details, you set up group rides where we're able to see each other. You don't have to be hooked up to a cell phone, you don't have to have cell phone connection, you don't have to have service out in the woods. We can see each other, and more importantly, what's not actually shown in any other video is in the corner I can see exactly how many feet or how many tenths of a mile that my buddy is from me. And so versus looking around and constantly turning and avoiding trees and avoiding traffic coming at you, you just look down to the corner of the gauge, you can instantaneously see how close your buddy is. And what's great about that is that you can modulate your speed based upon how the people that are riding in your pack behind you are coming. The other thing that I will mention, and it's something that not a lot of people talk about, is Polaris has suffered for many, many years for their storage and their luggage. Skidoo had it by far way above Polaris did for many, many years. Matter of fact, we would install Skidoo kits on our Polarises, Skidoo kits, sorry, on our Polarises, so that we could go ahead and mount those bags, those types of bags, on the back of the machine. And what's interesting about it is there have been accidents, even accidents in our own group of riding, where you turn around to check a bag that has come loose, and next thing you know, you've hit a tree, or you end up spending 3 hours in the woods looking for cell phones, keys, or other components. So those features, and they're great on their own. They've also made this sled exceptionally safe versus what we're used to riding.
Yeah, and on the backside of that, maybe brief update on our style of riding is we do a lot of trail riding. We ride the LP and the UP of Michigan. We are from Pittsburgh, but we make the travel up that way just because it's so much better. We'll clip off 200 to 300 miles a day pretty comfortably. We like to backpack. We drive to the center and park the truck, and we'll spend a few nights out on the road just hitting different hotels and places. We like to ride trails, and we take some excursions along the way, but mainly it's higher speed stuff and lots of whoops sometimes, depending on the trails. And that kind of tallies up to the bag upgrades that Polaris has come out with this year. I mean, last year I yard sailed a couple times, everything I had packed for the trip, and you would really lose a lot of time in the woods looking for the stuff you've left behind. So far, after 1,200 miles, my bag's actually in the truck, but it's the same, and we'll bring the phone over here and show you in a minute. But the storage has been fantastic. It stays on the sled. That's really the main advantage.
And it's interesting that Mike mentioned it, is that we will clip off 300 miles a day. It's not that we're trying to see if we can push more and more miles, but candidly, these sleds, they give you the ability to easily accomplish more than 200 miles a day. And there's a couple reasons why. One, obviously, it has a map. That's a screen that's up for you. Your map shows you not just obviously which trails you're getting on. You can actually plan a route around that map. It shows you where your gas stations are. And so with that alone, you're not stuck at an intersection trying to sort out which way to go. You can see precisely where to go. And we haven't even considered this because we didn't get lost from each other. But how many hours do you end up spending, or how many minutes for that matter, or tens of minutes, do you spend looking for your buddy, or your buddy made a wrong turn, you have to go and backtrack and try to find that person along the way. As I just mentioned, how many times have you lost something off your sled? That is now what we can tell entirely, it's gone with the new bagging system that Polaris has. And then, as we just mentioned, on this last trip, and it's something that I was not expecting at all, and I do know that this motor is the same as the last 2 years for the Patriot motor, but we were able to get an additional, what seemed like 20% in terms of mileage out of these sleds, and it sipped oil relative to what we're used to seeing, and gas mileage was excellent. And what that allowed us to do is to avoid one additional stop easily throughout the day, and sometimes more than that, you can stretch your ride out, get 100 miles for that tank, where before you're getting 75 miles, you start to get nervous where the next gas station might be. We figured out that on this tank, the normal cruising speed for us can be relatively quick. It was about 140, 150 miles we think we can get per tank.
Yeah.
So you're stopping at 100, 110 to be on the safe side, because you don't know when the next gas station may be. Of course, you can find it in your map. Where before you're stopping at 70 or 80 miles to make sure that you get fuel. Excellent sleds. All right, so I think we covered some of the most of the main points. There are a lot of really cool fit and finish things that Polaris did on this sled versus the Axys. The plastics are different. The windshield's different. It's put together in a different way. It's much cleaner. It feels much more put together than we've seen in the past. So that's another positive we've seen out of the Matryx this year.
Yeah, the stance feels a little bit more comfortable. The brake lever is a tremendous upgrade for Polaris from even last year, and mainly the knees.
Yeah, the knees for sure. They feel a lot better at the end of the day.
Yeah, so we'll bring the phone over, show some of the suspension stuff for the skis and the track, show the display and some of the storage, and walk around the sled.
Thanks for joining, guys. We'll give you some additional details. Cool.
All right, so coming around the front here, just as soon as you climb on the sled, it kind of feels like you're on an older Yamaha dirt bike there. You get a lot more room here in the knees. Bring it around here, Joe, to see it allows you to really be mobile on the sled. You can really hang over the side of that thing and still feel great on it. It's much easier. Feels like they moved the stance up a little bit. The pull start has been repositioned into its own little slot on the side. Whenever we come around, we'll see it, but we'll start right here with the brake. Last year and all the years before I've ever ridden a Polaris models, if you really need to get on that bad boy, I always ride with my finger hanging over, and if you squeeze it, a lot of times I've even pinched my fingers against the bar there, and it doesn't allow you to get all of it. But the pitch and just the general angle of the brake lever now is way better. You still get that signature Polaris sound when you hit the brake, but it's a lot more responsive, and it's easier on your hand. Today we did a couple of maintenance items on the bars. We both moved them just a hair, but I don't think the pitch from the factory was off that far for just anybody who's riding. For us, it was just more for comfort.
On that brake, you mentioned it's easier, and you're a one-finger rider in terms of having it always on the perch. And prior to the Axys model, you had to have two fingers a lot of times on that perch. And what Mike was mentioning is when you would squeeze that, if you got into a panic stop situation, you couldn't actually get the brakes, that lever, all the way back because it needed to go away to the bars. This lever here doesn't need to move nearly as far. It's angled better, it's bent better. And so even in a panic stop situation, first off, you can do it with one finger. Second off is you're not going to come anywhere near your hands on the bars. It is everything that, and Skidoo used to have a much, much better brake system. This year, I don't think so. I think Polaris now has the brake system to beat.
Yep, I agree.
How are ergonomics when standing up?
For me, I just about 6 feet tall. I just repositioned the bars a little bit for like how I like to stand in certain situations, but it wasn't uncomfortable. I just felt like I might have been out over in front of the sled a little bit much, but now it's fantastic. You stand, knee room, leg room, sled's comfortable, seats even more comfortable than they had been in the past. I think Skidoo was like a couch to sit on. I'd say the seat still maintains that Polaris feel, but it's a little bit more narrow in the front, it feels like. It's really nice so far. I mean, after 1,200 miles.
Another cool feature we had mentioned, the body work we're going to go into in just a second. But if you look at the footwells that are down here, there's large car mats now to get rid of the snow and ice that before would get jammed up and kind of go along with you for the whole trip. I noticed on this last go, in the last 1,000 miles that we put on, there was hardly any ice buildup that went into the footwells, which was really, really nice.
Oh yeah, and on top of that, I feel like the wind protection behind the sled is the best I've ever ridden. On the back, riding a Cat and Skidoo, and And now this sled, it doesn't seem like it would be, but it really keeps you out of the wind and protects you very nicely.
Alright, let's talk for a second about the lights. Can you turn that key on for a second? You've got this knife blade or something, or other inspired lights that come ultimately from an Audi or something like I mentioned. I don't know if you can toggle them on there, maybe off and on. Battery doesn't like that. There they go, they're coming on now. And this is just kind of like your running lights, if you would. That's not necessarily the lights that you have for this machine. I will say that when we went out on the road, it was a different light experience for us. And Mike recognized it straight away. What was one of the issues that you felt in beginning with the lights?
I think the pitch of our lights were way too low coming out of the factory, especially at night at our speeds on the trails. You just couldn't, especially with the low beam, you couldn't see very far in front of you at all. So the adjustment couldn't be easier on these sleds. There's a little knob behind you can get up in from the side. It's a real simple counterclockwise, clockwise turn to position the lights. So we just made that adjustment and kind of figured that out today. It should be an easy tune on the trails.
Yeah, it is really nice, and we thought it would be rather complicated. Of course, coming off a Skidoo before, you have to get in there and turn some screws to get the lights to move around. You get them set, and it's not really anything you want to do on the trail. With this, it is really easy. You don't even have to take off the main hood. You just take off the side panel. You can reach up in there, and there's an adjustment knob. You can turn it up or down. So here we were, the first 1,000 miles, kind of complaining about we wish we could adjust the lights in an easy fashion, and little did we know you actually could. It was a real easy adjustment to make.
Yeah, we don't ride much at night, but we ended up late a couple times. And actually, whenever we arrived the first night, we couldn't wait to get on the sled, so we took it out for 40 or 50 miles for a quick loop, and that's whenever we kind of noticed it.
Excellent. You mentioned before, there's nothing really that looks different about it. You have the grips, the heated grips. They're not going to look any different. They perform absolutely excellent for us. The seat is something that is different from the Axys chassis. And ergonomically, I think it fits very, very well with this new Matryx chassis. It is exceptionally comfortable. First off, in my opinion, going from being able to sitting on it, if you're cruising through down nice green trails, you start to get into loops, it's no problem whatsoever. But what I really liked about that, in combination with the wider space or knee wells or the wider area for your knees, is standing up is effortless as you're going along. You don't feel you're already in a natural position of standing up, so you can transition very, very quickly from a seated position to a standing position. And then what it made me do while I was on the trail was actually sit a little bit longer if you get into loops, because you're going to be able to stand up immediately versus standing the whole time because you can't get out of the saddle real quick.
Yeah.
One thing that we kind of picked up along the way, and it's not very well advertised, is something that's known as a ski saver of sorts. Actually, the ones that we utilize are the brand is called Navigators from Woody's. And it's something that I very, very rarely see out there on the trail, but we found to be very, very helpful in terms of the life and longevity of your trail runners. According to, if you go to the website, or even a ski saver or something of the sort, it's in front of your skeg. It ultimately helps the pack down. It helps to reduce some darting, and we think that does work for sure. We have not seen any impact necessarily to handling of the sled. Sometimes I think that it even handles better with having this in front of your skeg. We want to go ahead and show real quick. I'm going to show what it looks like underneath the sled. Ultimately, you can see that underneath here. It is this metal device that's in front of the skeg. You do have to drill 2 pilot holes to go through your ski. We've been using them for many, many years. It's not going to impact ultimately the integrity of the ski. And you put it in front of it, you can see how the skeg lies down underneath it. Now on this last trip, I was fortunate enough to be able to put on my Navigators before we went. It was a last minute deal. We just got the sleds. Of course, there were a lot of problems delivering these snow check sleds this year. So very, very quickly we threw the sleds into the trail, and the way we went up to the UP for sledding. I had my Navigators on, and Mike ultimately didn't, and we thought it'd be a wonderful kind of experiment or test to see what the difference is in having ultimately Navigators or not. So here are, I'm not very proud of this, but here are our skegs after about 1,000 to 1,200 miles. You can see we ended up ripping off one of the carbides, and that's fine. That's going to happen. Obviously, we're using it through a couple of days with that many miles. And this one here, you can tell this is the driver's side, and it gets a little bit less wear and tear. Ultimately you can see here it has all the carbide still, it's all good to go, and these are in great shape. So we went ahead and decided to take a look, as we said, it's a maintenance day, take a look at the other Skegs. And I don't know if you can immediately tell the difference. We were debating on maybe doing some measurements between these to figure out if there was maybe some sort of sign or signal that we can see, maybe do a real scientific. But we recognized that there was no need to even go forth with that, because these are the Skegs that came off the machine that, very, very similar miles, and obviously the same riding areas, that did not have, the ski savers or the navigators that we use. So once again, I've kind of set them all down here together. These were the two that clearly were behind that navigator, and these ones here were the ones that didn't have anything whatsoever. That was actually not fair. We should probably make it look more like a Skeg in that that picture.
And then this isn't a lot of road riding, guys. This is just clipping off some miles, and I mean, obviously sometimes when you hit a gas station or you have a section of road that's bad, or a groomer crashed through something on 8 and wreck the trail, you got to ride a little road, but it's nothing abusive, I would say, out of the normal trail situation, and it's just a save your plastic, grab a ski saver. So today we threw a couple brand new ones on mine, and my Skegs will thank me in the future.
Alright, just a couple other changes while we're here in front of the sled. The skis are actually the exact same as they're on the Axys chassis. What's different is the kind of the pull-out mounts here on the front of the skis. These spindles, which I think look amazing, are different than the Axys on the Matryx. You have this different design here, and it didn't really necessarily behave or operate any different. I can't say that it behaved or operated better, but it sure does look a heck of a lot better. Getting into some of the fit and finish items on the sled, you can do it very, very quickly. And before you remember, there was 2 of these toggles and 1 rubber mount that went across. Very quickly here, you can open up and get into the side panels. What else I sincerely really like is the front of this. This front clip has this round circular area that automatically mounts over top of it. You can pull it over top to get this out. Of course, this has the quick disconnects, one on each side, and this whole dashboard, this whole hood pops out, and away it goes. And take a look at the front of this. Look how mean and sick and wonderful this looks with this cutout, with this metal inside here. It reminds me a little bit of the Chaos in terms of its design. But accessing everything inside is relatively the same, but these panels, the fit and finish is just so much better on them. It looks really amazing. And for me, getting down into the brake and looking at everything you have here, it's still very, very similar to get to as it was before on the Axys chassis. The Matryx is just amazing to get to. And every one of us who's driven an Axys chassis has at least at one point in time on the trail had a fender blow off of them and go up in the air because they didn't have the strap on, they didn't have one of the toggles done. This thing here is more rock solid. I think you're not going to have that problem in the future. And there's something else that's really, really nice. If you come around the back, I'll be able to show this. Is on this Matryx chassis, and Mike found this, thank goodness, is that after you leave a gas station, you will go the first 2 or 3 or 4 miles thinking, did I put that oil cap back on? Did I put the oil cap on or not? And is it on tight? And so you'll psych yourself out in your head, but ultimately here, if you can look right down there where my finger's going into this, I can touch that oil cap and I can see that oil cap, and I know right away that it's put on and it's good to go and it's tight and everything is wonderful and right.
Yeah, it helps you get that warm, cozy feeling as you hit the fun flipper.
We've all been there, and candidly, I usually, if I get to that point in my head, I just stop and pull over and I yank it off the fender and have a look on the Axys chassis. Here on the Matryx, you can see it, or you can put your finger in and feel it is there and you're good to go. One of the great storage pieces that we found is this larger, taller bag. We also have a smaller or the medium bag, but this bag is absolutely amazing. First off, fit and finish is great. It locks down really tight. It's got, there's 3 different locks on each side and here on this side. This is the hinge side, of course. And you can pop this thing up. It has another zipper, of course, to keep everything dry here because snow is going to get everywhere. And this pops up, and of course you can put your gloves, your luggage, everything you would need. And one of the best features that we noted about this is that in this side, in the height of this, you could put two-stroke oil that cores that go in here are standing straight up. They're not on their side. I actually have this room right here for putting two. These are maneuverable. You can take this apart. You can reconfigure this how you want it. At the end of the day, get to your hotel or get to wherever you're going. And it's this simple. You've only got one snap on either side. Snap, snap, and it pops up and out. And you say, how did that happen? That's magic. Yes. Because you have these two tabs that clip in on this side. Now those two tabs, maybe they don't seem like they're enough to hold it, but I can guarantee you, we put this thing through quite a few loops, and it didn't even hiccup, vibrate, or do anything else back there. I actually feel finally that Polaris has nailed it for their storage. And this is multi-configurable in the back here. You guys have seen obviously with other videos. But they don't show necessarily the videos. You've got this wonderful handle on this side where you just grab it and walk into the hotel. You go where you're going. This is a truly amazing benefit to this new architecture. We were expecting it to be good. We weren't expecting it to be this good. It is truly, truly amazing setup.
Really nailed it on that.
Really did nail it. Spread. We did mention we're going to talk briefly about the 7S display. Obviously, it starts up. It has this amazing video that's on there. But we're not going to go into too much detail. We do feel that this has been covered many times again and again with other sites. But what I will mention as this loads up is that I did mention earlier the switch gear. You have to get used to this new sort of type of switch gear. And I don't think that at first that it was necessarily in the right position for my hand, being used to the Axys chassis. But here now you can see you can get to high beams, you can get to your heated grips, your reverse. The most important button, excuse me for a second, the most important button on this entire switch gear is actually this back button that's sitting right here. Because as you're riding, you know, I know a number of you, they like to look at the gauges, you don't want to look at a map, and I understand, I feel the same way sometimes when I'm riding. Other times I want to look at the map. And this button here allows a single push. Actually, I want to go off to my phone now. In a single push, there it goes to the map. In a single push, it would go back to the motor parameters. And here you go. These screens, of course, you guys have seen are multi-configurable. You can change around the dash layout, etc., etc. But this screen is amazing. What isn't necessarily mentioned on the reviews that compare this against the Axys, I will tell you, this screen is huge. It's big. And where the Axys, we thought we had it made because you had the PIDD. What we didn't realize is as you're going on the trail, if you're getting a lot of vibration or you're getting a lot of bumps, you have to slow down, let off, and really squint in and look at where you're going. Sometimes that was based upon the color of the trail you were looking at. Sometimes it was based upon how bumpy it was, but for sure, it didn't have enough resolution. And there was a large delay from the time you hit the zoom button on where you're at to get your zoom in. And if you see this, there's no delay whatsoever. It is instantaneous. As soon as you click it, it goes in and right back out. This map here being 7 inches wide, and the map itself is different. The trails are so obvious. It is so easy to see. There's no more slowing down and squinting, getting to a smoother area. You can see this without a doubt, without even having to worry. It's a quick glance down, glance back up, and away you go, and you know where you're at 100% of the time.
And the other thing, once you're ripping on the VR1, you don't even need your buddies to have necessarily a VR1 for you to see them on the map. As long as they have the Polaris Ride app open in their pocket, you can pick them up on the screen all the same. So you can keep tabs on everyone in your flock of riders, and it makes for a much safer and more efficient ride all day.
Inside of this is a nice storage area. We have this small divider that you can buy. It's a separate type of bag that goes in. There's a secret compartment that goes underneath, obviously to take up the majority of this glove box space. This stayed high and dry. I didn't see any snow in there. I've seen on some other machines where you get some snow that goes inside of here. So you have that for storage, and as well as this seat, it pops off. It is really nice. And we have this, you can get this accessory here as well. It's another bag storage that goes underneath the seat. And here, of course, we have our tools, stuff to get us out of a jam in case one of the machines breaks down. And so this is a really great storage feature. And this bag being zippable or closable keeps everything pretty high and dry. So the seat is pretty easy on and off. I found myself once or twice, as you see, I'm going back and forth, not finding the right spot for it. But it's just a matter of getting used to it, getting it locked in place. I've actually almost nailed it there. and then you can go ahead to the back of this and you lock the back in. So we'll catch that in a second. See if I can actually do it, Polaris. And that's it. And we're locked. And we're done. And away we go. Okay. I want to take a step back. I'll come to the front from this angle and talk a little bit about the handling and the performance and the suspensions. And while I'm at it, actually, while Mike's getting set up with the camera, I'm going to grab this panel and show you how easy it is to go on. I know you guys have, in the past, and have had Axys chassis. You've fought with, especially this side, the brake side. You've got this brake cooling duct that comes down here. And often you're fighting your way around it, you can't get it lined up. This slides in really nice, the bottom tucks in, everything's almost done. That's it. 1, 2, 3. She's locked on there, she's not going anywhere whatsoever. Talking about the handling of this machine, obviously this has the Velocity Series shocks. I did not feel that the shocks from last year were altogether that bad. These are excellent shocks, so you can find these on the XCRs. It is lacking, what I would say, a little bit of adjustability, and it does not have rebound. Those who come off of Skidoos, MXZs, etc., know that you can have a rebound adjustment. These do not have it, but they do have really good compression adjustment. As you see here with the shock, the majority of the shock body is being used. It is opened up all the way. There's not any room, if at all, for expanding this shock. What that means is we're using the full travel of that shock, which gives you a little bit softer setup, and then we're controlling really how that spring is operating through the compression setting here, which is very, very effective. I think these are some of the best front suspension or performing front suspension that's out on the market today. You will have to get this dialed in for your own liking. But what I would say is you don't have to think about anything with this front suspension except for this clicker. If you want it to be softer, to be more compliant, but yet have some bottoming risk, you can go ahead and go towards soft. You spin it in that direction. If you want it to have less, more bottoming resistance and be more stiff, then you go ahead and move it over towards the hard setting. It is that simple. Of course, obviously, as you adjust clicks on this side, you have to adjust them on the other side, so your right and left skis are always lined up the same. On the back of the sled, this is a beautiful, beautiful chassis. This chassis underneath it is the same set of suspension that we saw last year on the Indy. You have to excuse it's a little bit dirty. It actually came back from real use. And what's interesting is last year, those who got these sleds dialed in and really set up, this machine and this package really enjoys having a lower spring, a lower tension spring, and more of use of the shocks for its suspension control. So it says, I believe, at 180 to 200 pounds, you should be, or 220 or 220 pounds, something like that. It should be at a medium setting, and I am essentially 180 pounds without my gear on. When I add my gear, I'm still riding in the low setting. Of course, when you do that, you have to go ahead and click forward, make more stiff this shock and a little bit this shock to make up for the difference of having a softer spring. I don't necessarily know why it is, but this chassis setup and geometry really prefers to have a little bit more of the work done from the shock than it does on the spring, and it makes this sled handle unbelievable. Can you ride in medium? Can you ride in high? Absolutely, but if you want to extract the most out of this, and you are less than 200 pounds without gear, I would say go ahead and try low, click up your clickers a little bit, maybe to the right by about 3/4 off and fully soft to the left. And I think you'd be rather surprised on what you're going to get for the ride in this machine.
Excellent.
All right, guys. Well, that was our video. Really appreciate you watching. And it's our first time shooting, as we mentioned. We recognize we're not sitting in a regular studio. We don't have a snowmobile television show. But we decided it would be more important. It doesn't matter how perfect or polished it is to get the information out to you and into your hands. So maybe you can make a decision or not on the Polaris Matryx.
Yeah, it's something we wish we could pull up and review a sled, or just see a no-nonsense regular guy's review on a machine.
Yeah, so we're not sponsored by anybody. We don't care to be sponsored by anybody. It's a true, honest, and open review. I would say that the one thing that I wish we were sponsored by is we were drinking those KBC beautiful Pig Ice Blondes. What a great way to work on your sled. That's the way to do it. A little plug for KBC there. Yeah. Why not? So I guess the ultimate question is at the end of this session, in our first kind of 1,000 miles, obviously we try to give you our perspective, what we liked and disliked about the sled. But I guess the question to you, Mike, is this. This is a brand new sled for you for this year. Are you satisfied with the purchase, and would you recommend it to friends or family?
Yeah, coming off a 129 Rush 800 last year, it feels even more comfortable. It's super easy to ride in tight and twisty trails, and it feels even more stable in the wide open. So absolutely, this is the finest sled I've ever had the privilege to sit on.
Yeah, and for me, for all the safety reasons that I mentioned, all the convenience features, and look, we just went 1,000 and 1,200 miles. Just not that a quick little trip there, and ultimately didn't have any major considerations. I had one loose rear bogey wheel that we had to get taken care of along the way. But both of these motors, they're strong. They're low on vibration. You can ride them slow. You can ride them fast. They're exceptionally comfortable. And if I'm asked from any of my friends or family, what machine to get into, it is this machine 100%. It's going to be the Matryx chassis. Now, whether you're a mountain rider or you're a trail rider, that's going to dictate your length of track. But ultimately, it's going to be on this chassis. And it doesn't matter if you're a new rider or experienced rider. This is the one to go with for sure. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We appreciate you tuning in to us. And we'll see you again on our next review. See ya.
Later.